What comes to mind when you hear the word paralegal? For many outside of the legal profession, it's a title that is often misunderstood, or worse, completely overlooked. Now, on this podcast, we've talked about legal tech many times, but not paralegals. And as the legal system wrestles with rising costs, growing access to justice gaps, and pressure to modernise with technology, the role of the paralegal has never been more relevant. So today I'm joined by Amanda Hamilton, patron and director of NALP. And that is an acronym for the National Association of Licensed Paralegals. And while this conversation might not focus on flashy new apps or Silicon Valley buzzwords, it is a vital and timely reminder that digital transformation doesn't just happen in the obvious places. Whether we're talking about the regulation of legal services online or the quiet but powerful use of technology in paralegal workflows, there's a lot more tech here than actually meets the eye. If you ever wondered what a paralegal really does, who's qualified to call themselves one, and why that matters more than ever in today's ever-evolving legal landscape and world of legal tech, this conversation's right up your street. But enough scene setting from me. Let me officially introduce you to Amanda right now. So thank you so much for sitting down and joining me on the podcast today. Could you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Neil. My name is Amanda Hamilton. I'm the former CEO and currently the patron and a director of NALP, the National Association of Licensed Paralegals. My job basically is to have an input in the day-to-day running of the organisation, which is a professional membership body for paralegals. It's also an awarding organisation offering bespoke paralegal qualifications. And we're also an endpoint assessor for paralegal apprenticeships at level 3. And my job is very much mostly to do this, really. That is to spread the word about paralegals, what we do, who we are, etc. So that, in a nutshell, is a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. There's so much that I want to talk with you about today, Amanda. And I think for people listening outside of this space, there's still a lot of confusion around, or in some circles, around exactly what paralegal actually does. So just to bust any misconceptions out there, how would you explain the role in plain terms to someone that's listening outside of the legal world?
Well, a paralegal, I suppose in some ways is a difficult concept for the layperson, but a paralegal is someone who's trained and educated to perform legal tasks and offer legal assistance to individuals. Traditionally, paralegals are thought of as people who work in law firms assisting solicitors, but things have changed since I've been involved over the last 30 years, and I'm sure as we go through the questions, I can explain how things have changed. But essentially, a paralegal is not a qualified solicitor, barrister, or chartered legal executive. They are nonetheless trained, educated, perhaps with qualifications, even with law degrees. Some may even have thought about becoming solicitors and barristers, and for some reason or another have decided not to pursue that career pathway. So there is a lot of confusion, primarily because we have so many different branches of the legal profession: solicitors, barristers, chartered legal executive, licensed conveyancers, and then paralegals. But a paralegal can do many of the things that a solicitor can do with some restrictions. So I'm perhaps answering the question a little bit more in detail than you would like, but and you may have questions you want to ask me about that. But essentially, to put it in plain terms, a paralegal is an individual who may have legal qualifications, but has or may have lots of experience in a particular area of law, that can work within a law firm, or that can work in-house in organizations, in legal departments. Most organizations will have an element of legality to what they do. So a paralegal may be working there, I don't know, drafting commercial contracts, checking contracts, and so on and so forth. But in respect of the layperson, a client, a prospective client who is unaware, a paralegal can assist them in many, many different areas. Hopefully that's elaborated a little bit about what a paralegal is and what they can do. But I'm sure as we go through the interview a little more, it will become a bit clearer about exactly where they stand within the legal sector.
And that is such a good explanation there. And I think many people I didn't for one, didn't realise that paralegals can offer access to justice at such a much lower cost than solicitors too. And I'm curious though, what types of legal support can they provide, and where are the limits?
Right. Well, there's a broad area of legal support that a paralegal can provide to consumers. Yeah. Anything ranging from helping them with court cases and completion of legal forms and court forms, to assistance with family matters, housing matters, the whole gamut of legal matters that may affect a consumer, they can provide support for. However, as you intimated, they are limited in what they can provide simply because there are restrictions. The restrictions are there to ensure that only certain members of the legal sector, such as solicitors and barristers, and chartered legal executives, only they have the right to do certain things. For example, the reserved activities, as they are referred to, will prevent a paralegal having what's known as a right of audience. That means that they cannot, without express permission, represent their client in a court of law, i.e. stand up before the judge and present their client's case. That is reserved for solicitors and barristers. Neither can paralegals conduct litigation. Now, that basically means that they're not allowed as agents to receive documentation from the court, formal documentation from the court, as somebody to whom service applies on behalf of their client. Solicitors can, paralegals cannot. And that means that they can't sign documents or letters on behalf of their client, but the client can do that themselves. So there is a way around it, but there are these restrictions, and anybody who operates and works as a paralegal must know what the reserved activities are, and these are boundaries that they cannot step over.
And I think one of the common misconceptions, certainly here in the UK, is that paralegals aren't regulated. So can you clarify what regulation looks like today, especially in England and Wales?
There is a distinction between the professions that we're aware of, such as solicitors and barristers and chartered legal executives and licensed conveyancers. These four legal professions are what we call statutorily regulated. So that means that there is an Act of Parliament that says, in order to hold yourself out as a solicitor or a barrister or a chartered legal executive or a licensed conveyancer, you have to go through the appropriate training to become and call yourself one of these professions. Now, the appropriate training is usually the training that is prescribed by the regulatory body for each of these professions. For example, the SRA are responsible for the training of solicitors and for defining what that means. Currently, it means that someone has to either have a law degree and have done the postgraduate qualification in law, which is called the legal practice course, or the alternative is to have completed the solicitor's qualifying examinations. Now, that is the prescribed training program for anyone who wants to become a solicitor. They then have to have under their belt 2 years solicitor's qualifying experience before they are admitted on the roll of solicitors. So there is a prescribed form of training for solicitors. And that means that anybody who refers to themselves as a solicitor or infers that they are a solicitor, and that can be done quite easily. You can just say, I'm a lawyer. And in the eyes of the consumer, a lawyer is only going to be a solicitor or barrister. And if this individual is not a solicitor or barrister, basically they're stepping over the boundary and they could be construed to have committed a criminal offence. So one has to be very clear about that. And now, in this respect, paralegals are not regulated in a statutory way. There is no one act of parliament that says to be a paralegal, you have to do this prescribed form of training. And that is the picture that we have today. Now, having said that, there is one voluntary regulatory body. It has to be referred to as a voluntary regulatory body because it's not statutory, it's not a statutorily regulated profession. But the voluntary regulatory body for paralegals is NALP, the National Association of Licensed Paralegals. And while we cannot force people who want to work as paralegals to be members of our organisation, we actively encourage them to do so, simply because from a consumer's point of view, it's quite satisfactory to know that the person that is assisting you is a member of a well-known organisation and has been vetted. Whereas somebody who is not a member of NALP, and it's quite common for people to refer to themselves as paralegals and not be a member of NALP, it's difficult then for the consumer to ascertain where they're coming from, who they are, have they got qualifications, have they got experience. And so in that respect, anyone can refer to themselves as a paralegal. And it's primarily because the government and the powers that be do not believe there should be any more statutory regulated professions within the legal sector. And that's where the situation lies as far as regulation for paralegals is concerned in England and Wales. It's not ideal, but it's good that we do have one well-known, established professional membership body for paralegals. It's also good for the paralegal themselves if they can refer to themselves as a NALP member, because there is that enables somebody to check on their membership and their level of membership. And each level of membership infers a higher or lower experience level or qualification level. And that is, I think, reassuring for both the paralegal and the consumer who wants to use their services.
And I was going to say, with so many organisations and indeed individuals calling themselves paralegals, how can the public and people listening know who is properly qualified and who is credible? But listening to you there, they need to be a member of NALP. People listening, if they're interested or they want to check out, they should be checking their level of membership, checking that they're vetted. But anything else that they should be doing?
Well, it's difficult for the consumer, as we've already discussed, because there are so many different branches of the legal profession. But you're quite right in that any paralegals out there listening to this should consider seriously that they should be a member of our organisation. As I said earlier, we've got different levels according to the level of experience and or qualification. And at the highest level, we have a principal fellow level, which implies that the paralegal who's granted that level of membership has got at least 10 years experience and or qualifications as well in their particular area of law that they practice in. We also offer a license to practice. Now, a license to practice is primarily for paralegals who do wish to set up their own paralegal law firms, offering services to the public. And they are well scrutinized, and we do a lot of due diligence on our licensed paralegals at that level to ensure that they comply with our very strict codes of practice on working within the sector and with their dealings with consumers. So there is that. And I think that consumers should question someone who refers to themselves as a paralegal should ask that question. Are you a member of NALP? Do you have qualifications? Can I check somewhere that you are the member of NALP? Because we do have a national paralegal register for all NALP members. And that means that for the public at large, consumers or even prospective employers of paralegals, they can go onto the register and check the level of membership and indeed whether this individual is in fact a member of our organisation.
And from the outside looking in, it feels like the National Paralegal Register, it sounds like a real tool for transparency, a key tool for that. So how does it work, though, and who monitors the qualifications and experience and everything listed there?
Well, as I just mentioned, the National Paralegal Register is there for transparency purposes. It really is. And it's available for anybody to check. The people that are on there, the paralegals that are on there, have already gone through the due diligence of becoming a NALP member. So once they're on the register, they should be listed according to their membership category. And then there is an explanation of what that membership level or category means. So, for example, a graduate member may have a law degree, but may not necessarily have experience. So if a prospective employer is looking on the register and they want to employ a law graduate, they can see plainly who is there. On the other hand, if somebody is classed as an associate member or a senior associate member, they know that these level of memberships, the person has at least a level 3 or level 4 qualification in law or paralegal qualification, and they have a minimum of 3 years experience. So it is there for transparency, and it's there and open to the public for checking purposes to see whether the person, the consumer, is hoping to employ to assist them in their legal matter is registered and the level of membership they have, or, as I say, to check that they are a member just purely and simply, or for a prospective employer to find somebody if they're looking to employ a paralegal.
And I also wanted to highlight that NALP has actually been around since 1987. So how has the perception and role of paralegals, has that changed over the decades, and indeed the impact of technology on what you do and the entire industry?
Yes. Well, to answer your question in a nutshell, it's changed drastically over the last 38 years or so that we've been around. I mean, initially, the membership body was set up by my predecessor to give people working in law firms specifically a membership of an organization. And then within a few years, the first paralegal training program was developed. And then over the next few years, another training program was developed. And so by the time we got to the late 1990s, there were they weren't qualifications as such, but they were paralegal training courses for people who didn't want to become solicitors, didn't want to become barristers, but who nevertheless wanted to work in the legal profession, but have some kind of background knowledge of the law and membership, indeed, of the association. And that's how it all started. And then towards the late 1990s, early 2000s, when the market was flooded with law graduates or people intending to become solicitors, and there wasn't enough training contracts available for them. So basically what was happening was there was a flurry of organizations and training providers offering law degrees, offering legal practice course qualifications, which is postgraduate. And students were flooding into these courses and qualifications. But at the other end, when they came out, in order to become a solicitor, they needed to find a 2-year training contract. And these were being overprescribed. So our organization, NALP, received several referrals from the Law Society. And in those days, there was no Solicitors Regulation Authority. That comes a little bit later. So we were getting referrals from the Law Society suggesting that students who had contacted them who couldn't find a training contract could perhaps find alternative routes into the legal profession, such as doing one of our paralegal qualifications. And that's how it started to develop in the early 2000s. And then over the next decade, so the noughties and beyond, we had the introduction of the Legal Services Act 2007, which was the start of building the regulatory framework for the conventional professions. So instead of just having a law society, we had the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which, as it sounds, was the regulatory authority for solicitors. Instead of having the Bar Council, we then had the Bar Standards Board, which is the regulatory body for barristers. With legal executives, there was the legal executive, the SILEX, as it's now called, the SILEX regulatory body was set up, and so on and so forth. And then there is still, of course, an overarching supervisory body for the legal sector called the Legal Services Board, which was set up as a totally independent body that oversees the other regulatory bodies. And that's how we still currently have the system set up. And over the years, the Solicitors Regulation Authority has changed the prescribed form of training for solicitors, as has the Bar Standards Board. And these are the bodies that are responsible for their prescribed training. Now, very much during this time, we were at NALP building up a reputation for training paralegals and also for ensuring that knowledge is dispersed about what a paralegal is, although I do understand that people are still confused about that, but also to elucidate the fact that paralegals don't just work in the legal sector. In other words, they work in the public sector, in-house legal departments, charities, and so on and so forth. And this is the message that we're starting to get out in the noughties and the next decade, that a paralegal is not just a law graduate looking for a bit of experience before they become a solicitor, as a sort of hop towards becoming solicitor. No, it's not just that. That paralegals can work in any organisation as long as there is an element of legality to what is being done there. And then to push forward the idea that paralegals can actually work for themselves in order to assist consumers and offer them access to justice at a reasonable cost. And this became absolutely paramount in 2013 with the Legal Aid and Sentencing Act that came out in 2012, which is nicknamed LASPO, which came into effect in 2013. And what that did was virtually eradicate legal aid, legal funding for the average consumer in the street. Prior to that time, an individual who was having a legal problem, was being taken to court or needed to take somebody to court, could approach a solicitor and, subject to their means, could get legal aid to assist them in moving forward in their case. That has now gone completely, and legal aid is now only available in the more urgent cases, such as people about to lose their homes and so on, and in some family matters to dealing with children. So from that time forward, the growth of the paralegal professional has exponentially just exploded, simply because the average consumer cannot afford to pay the fees of solicitors and barristers. And, put your hand in your pocket to pay a solicitor £250 or £300 an hour plus, and this is per hour, is not probably within the realms of realism for most average people in the street. Whereas a paralegal will charge anywhere between £30 and £80 an hour, depending on the type of work that they're being asked to assist with. And that's more manageable, I would suggest. So access to justice at a reasonable cost has become the watchword of paralegals now. And that means that a business or an individual can approach a paralegal, check their credentials, and get assistance that they may not otherwise have been able to afford if they didn't have this option.
And throughout both our careers, I think we've seen the arrival of computers in offices, the internet, cloud storage, mobile applications. And initially, the legal profession was accused of being a little late to adopting digital transformation and digital tools. And despite that is the rise of legal tech solutions. So I've got to ask, has that changed? And are there any differences in attitudes towards tech and tech tools in the legal versus paralegal industries? Have you seen any big changes here? Has it helped the paralegal industry too?
Yes, up to a point. Of course, technology, we have to keep up with the times as much as we can as far as technological innovations are concerned, and particularly presently with AI. And just like in any other profession, I think that the use of email correspondence has been revolutionary. And this obviously became clear during COVID times when courts couldn't easily have trials or hearings in lockdown. So many of the hearings that were necessary took place either online or over the phone. And so technology really, really helped. And of course, emails now, a lot of information is distributed via email very, very quickly compared with the old-fashioned way of using the snail postal service, which the way it used to be in my day when I was working, everything had to be sent by post. And, you know, when people think about that now, they think, oh my God, how did anybody manage to do anything then? It was such a slow process, but people accepted it because that was the only process they had. Now, of course, so much information is exchanged via email, and technology means that traveling to a meeting or traveling to a hearing is not necessary when you can have a Zoom or a Teams meeting online. And as far as AI is concerned, you know, I've been asked this question on numerous occasions, you know, how has AI affected, has it affected the profession generally in a bad way or a good way? And I would suggest that on the whole, in a good way.
Yeah.
But we have to be very careful about replacing the human aspect and knowledge and experience with the AI side of things. And you know, AI is useful up to a point. It's useful to get a template for a letter, a template for an agreement, or whatever it is. But we still have to add in the human aspects and the unique points that we need to make within that document or letter. So I think that my initial reaction when I was first asked about AI was, I think the question was surrounded by, do you think AI will replace paralegals or will replace legal personnel? My answer to that is no, I don't think it will. And simply because, just like in the medical profession, I can't foresee ever turning up at a doctor's clinic and being triaged by a hologram or whatever. I think there are certain professions where there needs to be human contact and face-to-face contact, and rather than computerized contact or AI contact. But like with everything, we have to be very careful how we use technology and be aware of the consequences of not using it correctly. Many years ago, I was asked to comment on an email that had been leaked from a law firm to another law firm. And it was about one of the secretaries in the law firm who'd accidentally at a party knocked over some ketchup on a partner's trousers or something like that, and was asked to get it dry cleaned and so on and so forth. And I just thought that there was these emails going to and fro from this partner to this legal secretary about this, which then was leaked because somebody thought it was hilarious that there was a flow of communication about dry cleaning the trousers, the partner wanting the trousers done immediately, the legal secretary saying things like, well, after my mother's funeral, I'll be happy to do it, and so on and so forth. And it leaked. And the consequence was that obviously we cannot not bear in mind the fact that what we're writing could be seen by anybody. And that's the thing. And with AI, yes, it has its uses, but let's be discerning about how we use it for the same reasons. So that's my take on it.
I love that. And looking ahead, based on everything that we've talked about today, what do you think needs to happen to maybe better strengthen public trust in the paralegal profession and ensure that consistent standards right across the board? What needs to happen here, or what are you hopeful will happen?
Well, I think, first of all, there needs to be a proper set of facts available to the public, available to the consumer about the different legal professions that we have, their restrictions or non-restrictions, what they can do, what they can't do. That's number one. And this has to be, I think, publicly available in a transparent way. I think, I mean, I do know that there are a few websites that have this information on there, but they're not widely publicized. And so for the consumers, from the consumer's point of view, mostly when they think of the legal profession, they think of solicitors and barristers. That's it. So number one is to have a transparent set of details and information about the various different legal professions that we have. And we are quite unique in England that we have so many. It's not the same in Scotland, of course. In Scotland, they just have solicitors and they have paralegals. That's it. In Europe, they just have attorneys or advocates or whatever you want to call it. And that's it. And they have a dual role. But in this country, it's very confusing with all the different legal professions and the different things they can and can't do. So that's number one. Consistent standards. Well, I can only really talk about it from NALP's point of view. We have similar codes of practice that the solicitors do. So the codes of practice that you see on the SRA will be similar to what we require from our members. And in that way, we hope to ensure consistent standards with those of solicitors. So I can't speak for the other professions, but we would align ourselves with those type of standards because, let's face it, a paralegal can do virtually anything that a solicitor can do except for those reserved activities. But they are still helping people with their legal difficulties, legal problems, and so on and so forth. So that's why we'd like to ensure that our codes of practice and what we expect from our paralegal members is the same as the SRA expects from their qualified solicitors.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today, demystifying the paralegal industry there and talking about it in a language everyone can understand. I, for one, have certainly learned so much today. And I've learned a lot as well listening to you and hearing about your story. And as we come full circle, I'm going to ask you to look back now at your career and try and join up a few dots of how you got where you are. And of course, none of us are able to achieve any degree of success without a little help along the way. So is there a particular person that you're grateful towards? Maybe they saw something in you, helped you get you where you are, that we can give a little shout out to today. Who would that be and why?
Well, in fact, there are two people. I hope you don't mind if I express that. But the first would be my father, who unfortunately is long gone. But my father saw something in me and he pushed me towards getting a law degree quite later than most people. So number one, him. But latterly, my predecessor, the former CEO of NALP, National Association of Licensed Paralegals, John Stacey Hibbert. He set it up in 1987, set the organization up in 1987. And through various different circumstances, I met him in the mid-90s when I was developing a paralegal training course myself. And we became very close friends and we discussed the sector in all its little nuances and the future of the legal sector and in particular about paralegals, the way forward for paralegals. And it was really he that saw the potential in me. And when he retired in 2007, 2008, he offered me the opportunity to take it over. And I saw huge potential for the organization. And up until virtually the day, unfortunately, he's recently passed away himself. But up until that point, 2 weeks before that point, we were in constant communication. We discussed a lot on the phone about what's happening, etc., etc. But he really was an inspiration for me. Great man. Gosh, I miss him greatly. I miss him such a lot. But I miss our conversations. But he was the one that pushed me forward and saw my potential latterly, and I will be forever grateful to him.
Such a beautiful answer, and I think it's incredibly heartwarming that both your father and John Stacey Hibbert, they're both very much alive in you and how you live your life and the work that you're doing and the work that you'll pass on to other people as well. So it's a beautiful answer. And for anyone listening who would like to find out more information about your team online, find out more about anything we talked about today, maybe something struck a chord with anybody listening, where would you like to point them?
I think to our website. So our website is nationalparalegals.co.uk. That's nationalparalegals.co.uk. Mostly you can find all the information about what we do on there, in particular about membership. And I would encourage anyone out there who's doing something related to some kind of legality to consider joining our association. And certainly somebody who's got a potential to become a licensed paralegal operating their own law firm, paralegal law firm, I should say, then I would entice you to come and join our association. We also give career advice. We offer all sorts of benefits to our members. So please do check out our website and contact us if necessary.
Well, I'll add a link so people listening can find that nice and easily. And we did cover a lot today, from talking about what paralegal actually is, the benefits of utilising the services of a paralegal, and access to justice at a reasonable cost, and how they're trained, how they're educated, how they're regulated, and everything in between. And also the role of technology, of course, and the impact that has and will have in the future. Love chatting with you today, Amanda. Just thank you for bringing this topic to life. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Neil. I've enjoyed it very much indeed.
I think from outdated assumptions to modern realities, Amanda helped us uncover a side of the legal world that doesn't often get the spotlight, but it absolutely should. And we did cover everything from voluntary regulation, the natural paralegal register, and why tech may support legal services but never fully replace the human judgment that comes behind them. And as access to justice becomes more digital, more decentralised, it's clear that paralegals and the organisations supporting them play a crucial role in bridging that gap between affordability and credibility. But what do you think? Could greater public awareness and digital transparency elevate the entire legal profession? Or are we still underestimating the power of alternative legal services? Please let me know your thoughts. So a big thank you to Amanda for demystifying the world of paralegals there. And if there's a topic that you would like me to demystify and go after, please let me know. Other than that, I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest. But thank you for listening as always. Bye for now.